Have you ever heard of tree theft? I'm talking about people poaching trees from our forests, valuable old growth wood worth a whole lot of money. It's a topic our next guest explores in her novel, Three Thieves, Crime and Survival in North America's Woods. Lindsey is joining us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So I hadn't heard of this before. How big of an issue is this?
Yeah, so in the book, I kind of look at it on a local level in British Columbia and then across North America in general. And so theft of trees within British Columbia is estimated to be around $20 million a year. In North America, that number balloons. So the Forest Service in the United States estimates that it can be worth up to $100 million a year there. And overall, so not just from public lands, but from private logging lands and private residential lands, it can be worth up to $1 billion a year.
When I think about these big old trees, like I'm confused as to how somebody goes in and poaches, like actually poaches the tree. How does that work?
Yeah, well, I mean, often tree poachers are, they live in former logging towns, and they're quite handy with chainsaws and axes and things like that. And so they'll go in and just cut it down the same way that you would cut down, a single tree that you're removing from your property. Usually it happens along roadsides, and that's just because it's easy to transport from there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it looks a little bit different depending on the species that's being taken. But it's essentially just chopping down a tree.
I know, and I suspect because it is that, like if I were to be driving down a road and I see somebody chopping down a tree, I'd go, well, they're supposed to be doing that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And so, the amount of time that I've spent with natural resource officers and park rangers, and, I've gone on patrols with them, and we would be driving down a Forest Service road or down a park road, and I would see a stump and think, well, that must have been taken for some reason or another. And then they would pull over and say, well, this is new. This is a poaching site.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So, Lindsey, I want to ask you, when you set out to write your book, you thought it would be a crime story, but it ended up being a bit of a social and history lesson instead. Can you tell us about the root problem of tree poaching?
Yeah, when I started researching the book and started doing interviews with rangers and also kind of local economic experts and things like that, they kept saying to me, we in the Pacific Northwest in particular, we have a number of former logging towns that are just now have a depleted tax base, and there's a lot of poverty in this area, and that is what's driving poaching. And I had never thought of it that way. I thought that tree poaching was happening, but that it was not systemic, but of course it is systemic. And so as I began researching the book, and doing interviews in some of the towns where poaching is really common, a lot of people started telling me about how there's not a lot of work in the towns. There are a lot of people that are from these areas and don't want to move, and they feel very comfortable working in logging, and tree poaching is one way of kind of keeping that work going. And they, quite a few poachers feel very comfortable in the woods. They feel very comfortable with that machinery. Mm-hmm. And so they would go off and do this. And yeah, this was a kind of issue that was echoed up and down the Pacific Northwest. So I write about British Columbia in the book, but I also write about Washington State, Northern California. These are all regions that really struggle with poverty in rural areas. Yeah.
Well, Lindsey, thank you. We really appreciate your time. A topic I did not know not of until this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.